even though this project is called Rebuilding Democratic Discourse, has come to be known as the incel project. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking to you about today is really focusing on a particular online community. And Mihaela sends her apologies, but she can't be here today, unfortunately, and she's the PI. So in this project, we wanted to take a kind of hateful group, or at least known in the popular culture, super hateful, i.e. incels, and try and understand why people join such a community, how does it sustain itself. And we kind of tested these three sort of broad hypotheses, and as hopefully I'll quickly show, these three hypotheses contribute to the sustainment of the ideology, the sort of hateful ideology that they produce. And to do so, we scraped incels.is, the popular incel forum, and tried to do some analysis on that. So this is the full team, so there's a lot of us, which means there was a lot of different stuff going on at the same time. And we used the money, thank you by the way, the money that we got from CDTS to hire the research assistants, especially to do the more empirical stuff, because, I mean, I come from philosophy, we don't do a lot of data-driven stuff. And then we're really thankful to the other people who weren't sort of paid, but supervised the research assistants and helped us out with their expertise as well. To give you a very, very quick background on incels, so an incel is a short thing for involuntarily celibate, right? To be an incel, you don't have to be hateful, misogynistic, and so on. And that's why we're focusing on a specific subset of incels, i.e. manosphere incels, as we call it. Manosphere is a broader bit on the internet that is united in the sort of anti-feminist rhetoric. So like your men's go their own way, men's right activists, your pickup artists, that kind of thing. Incels gather on these, or manosphere incels, on sites like incels.is, and they are kind of, we can pick them out by their belief in the black pill ideology. Now the black pill ideology is very anti-feministic, and it tells incels essentially, look, you are conventionally unattractive, and that's why society is punishing you, and women have too many rights, too much autonomy, and they're choosing to discriminate against you. That's why you don't have a partner. What differentiates black pill from other anti-feminist ideologies is this very fatalistic outlook. So it says, unless there's some kind of systemic change, like, I don't know, enforce monogamy, ban on divorces, taking rights away from women, this is your lot in life, you should just accept it. And so this is the type of thing we're interested in, because it's quite extreme, and you think like, well, why would you want to believe this? Why would you want to stay in a space that perpetuates such hateful content? The forum itself is, it has quite, well, very strict membership, so you have to be a straight cis man to join. You can't, there's no women, no queer people allowed, no non-incels, no blue bill content, i.e. no pro-feminist content, or even something a little bit more mundane like, hey, I saw this really conventionally attractive woman with a lesser conventionally attractive man, and they seemed really happy. That stuff like that could potentially get you banned from the forum, which creates an extreme echo chamber, right? Because you're not allowed outsiders' views, you just kind of stay within this bubble, and as I think anyone who does anything on social media will know, the more extreme content will get you the more interaction, right? So it's really a space that creates this just a bubble of extreme, not so nice content. So now I will tell you what each kind of discipline did, but we did all work together. It's just that easier to explain if I differentiate them. So computer science and ICRA worked on, we had ICRA from computer science here, and we attempted to automate a model so we could automatically pick out negative posts, so negative to either other incels or people in the outgroup like women and other men, positive incel content, or just neutral. Now, the neutral doesn't mean it doesn't have any emotive language or anything like that. It's just that the aim of the post is not at anyone. So it could be, the post could contain a bunch of swear words, maybe slurs, but if it's not aimed at anyone, it would have been classed as neutral. What we found is very little positive content was on the forum, and it wasn't such a big surprise, but how little was a little bit surprising, because we thought that the interaction between incel to incel would be like, yeah, I also hate women kind of thing, you know. And the model, once it was trained, it actually didn't pick out any positive contents, which is an interesting result in its own right. Our model did worse than the previous model, only 64% accuracy, but I think that's just because, well, it was a learning curve to understand that it's actually really hard to annotate this stuff because of the pure emotive language that is contained within the forum. I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here for days, but I wanted to highlight how much incel-specific jargon there was on the forum. So they're very, very productive in the use of their language. And I come from philosophy of language, so this stuff is extremely interesting. Particularly note on these little cell bits, so old cell, young cell, height cell, and so on. The suffix cell is used to produce almost like a signal for one's identity. So if I identify or define myself as a height cell, I'm telling you I am an incel because of my height. No one wants to go out with me because of my height. If I'm an ugly cell, no one wants to go out with me because of my appearance and so on. They don't always work like that, but there's some interesting kind of identity features that we got from this exercise as well. From the linguistics side, we had Lily from Aston, who created a corpus. As you can see, there's almost 7 million tokens of it. And here were the 20 top terms that she found in the corpus she had. And you see incel being the top one and Freud being the second one. So there's a lot of discussion of what it means to be an incel, and Freud is a derogatory term. Sorry, I will be mentioning some slurs in this talk, but I will not be using them. I hope that's cool. Freud is a term towards women to kind of say like, oh, the female of an android, to kind of signify the cold behavior, calculated nature, and so on. From the corpus, we wanted to look at these 4 key terms. So subhuman, the reason why we picked subhuman is because they use it towards out-groups and in-groups, which is very interesting, and you don't normally see that with other groups. So they'll describe themselves as subhuman, as well as women being subhuman. Freud, already explained that one. True cell is a true, genuine, ideal incel, someone who will never leave their inceldom. And then fake cell, someone who is a fake incel. And this term, fake cell, is used to police other people on the forum. To kind of say like, look, you're not a proper incel, you don't belong here, by trying to outgroup them in the community. So, I got a few of these visualizations. If you haven't seen these before, so the key term is in the middle. Now, the further the word is from the key term, the further it occurs in a piece of post or whatever, and the bigger the word is, the more frequently it occurs, okay? I'm not going to go into the details because again, 15 minutes, but with Freud, we found the key terms that occur is of one's race, appearance, and attraction. And we found that discussion around women in particular reduced women to something, right, just to their looks. We also saw words like women being described as toilets or it occurring at all, a lot, so it's reducing women to something away from their autonomy, away from their kind of human side. When we looked at the in-group words, so here we've got true cell, subhuman, and fake cell. Interestingly, true cell and subhuman occurred closely together and very frequently together. Now, what that sort of told us is that to be a genuinely good, ideal incel, you have to prove yourself to be kind of a subhuman, right? So you have to prove yourself to be kind of not worthy out there in the outside world. So the worse you have it, the more status you're building on the forum. And you can see that with true cell and subhuman, but as you can see, Freud appears with subhuman quite frequently as well, which tells us that they also use it towards women. And then fake cell and vol cell is a voluntary incel, well not incel, voluntary celibate, there we go. They occur frequently together, and these are terms to question one's belonging on the forum as expected. So they're very much used to police individuals. So if you say something that's maybe a little bit favourable to women, or if you say like, oh, I'm tall but still no one finds me attractive, you might get accused of being a fake cell or bull cell, and depending on how serious your offence is, people might call moderators to ban you off the forum. Okay, so from the philosophy and politics side, we took the insights from the empirical findings and tried to situate them with the theories that we're familiar with, right? So we particularly looked at kind of hegemonic masculinity theories, as well as using insights from philosophy of language. And to ask the questions like, why would you join the forum in the first place, we thought, or we read around the literature on kind of the pressures, especially sexual pressures that young boys and men face, especially when growing up, and when they're not kind of meeting those expectations, they're feeling emasculated and alienated from the rest of their groups, right? Because they don't have experiences that bond young men and boys in terms of like, sex, romantic relationships, and so on. So the virgin shaming and emasculating practices in the offline world will often leave them feeling socially displaced, alienated, and lonely, right? The online sphere will provide them with a community, which is a great thing, because maybe it's the first time in their life they can share their kind of what they feel are shortcomings. And it gives you a stigma, shame-free space, and also a place you can gain some status. So the longer you spend on the forum, the more you post, the more the people interact with you, you've got like different levels that you can reach, right? So you start out what they call a grey cell, because your username is grey, and you end up on a paragon level, I think it's a purple username, but that gives you respect from others, right? And the higher level you are, it's more likely that people will interact with you. But to get this status, you have to follow a particular social practice, you have to take on particular roles, you have to follow particular norms, right? And this is what we kind of theorized, and various bits of our work comes out of this, that the black belt ideology sets a particular practice for you, right? So the norm is that you're going to be hateful towards women and otherwise it's unacceptable, right? So you're going to use derogatory language and dehumanizing language towards women. Importantly, we think with incels, at least, that in-group behavior says something very, very particular. It tells you you have to behave in a way that nothing good happens in your life, right? So it reinforces these ideas, whilst at the same time kind of by showing how much of a subhuman you are, you kind of show, I am a true self on here. So you get the ideology providing you with the social practice, which in turn reproduces the ideology. So you have this circle. It's very hard to escape if you don't have any outside support from it, right? Failure to abide by the rules or the norms of the forum, and I guess the practice that they create, will lead you to being called a fake cell or false cell and potentially be banned off the forum. So outcome-wise, I'll quickly go through this. Sorry, I realise I'm speaking very fast. So we, from the Politics RA, published a blog called How to Become an Incel, exploring incel ideologies. It's a great read, I recommend that. It's open for debate, which I think is a Cardiff University blog. We have 2 papers under review. The first one, Resistance Through Revision, analyzes the way those cell terms work to destigmatize incel identity on the forum. The taboo and counterculture is about how they break taboos to create their countercultures, quite extreme countercultures online. And these 3 are still kind of in the works. But we're super duper lucky to get another CDTS grant, so we're lucky to kind of finish all of this all together. These are the presentations we presented stuff in. You don't need to read them, but there's a few. And we organised a couple of workshops as well during the grant period. And then lastly, for teacher research, because we got a new grant, we were looking to include the sociology of RA into our team, which we felt would be super duper beneficial. And now we're working to focusing on more on the misogynistic aspect in the forum to really understand, well, taking their grievances seriously where they feel lonely, how do they get to the point where misogyny is so encouraged rather than criticizing maybe the system that put them there in the first place. And we're working to understand the self-referential uses of subhuman a little bit better with the linguist who's employing something called move analysis, if you know what that is. And there we go. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Justina. Super interesting, amazing work. We have a few minutes for questions, and then we have a short break. Let's enjoy the Q&A.
That's absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
I wonder if you could expand a little bit on what data has revealed to you about, I mean, for quite understandable reasons, this has been presented as quite sort of pathological community. But clearly, for members of that community, there must be kind of effective rewards or perhaps kind of consolation. So was that something that came through to you in the data at all, the motivation for participating in this? How participants benefited?
Yeah, so I think the benefits, and it comes from the data, but also just the literature that already exists on incels, which, although there isn't a lot in philosophy, there's a bunch of criminology and kind of terrorist studies as well. But I think it's finding a sense of community and understanding their experiences. I think that's the main thing. So a lot of incels would report how they never quite understood why they didn't fit in until they found the black pill. So the black pill ideology gives them a conceptual framework which isn't available for them in the offline world in particular. And I think just having someone to talk to and being able to, I guess, reach some type of status which they don't feel like they are able in the offline world at all. A lot of the time, and this is a question we get, and I think you get when you do any kind of research with online data, it's like, well, how seriously are the people taking the stuff that they're saying online, right? For the ideological purposes, for us, it doesn't matter because our ideologies are defined through practice rather than beliefs. So as long as you're participating, the ideology keeps going. But I think at the same time, if you spend a lot of the time online kind of spewing this stuff, some of it is going to bleed back into you, I think, a little bit. And some of the people who have done interviews with incels, that's some things that they report as well. Even when they leave the community, they can't leave the black pill behind.
But it was the lack of positivity in the comments that really stood out. Would one not expect a certain amount of kind of mutual support if it was a sense of community that was held?
I mean, I guess that's one of the things that is quite distinct about this community, but it's trying to show that it's trying to one-up your bad position, right? Because if you think about who a true cell is for this community, someone who has it so bad that they will never be able to obtain a romantic, meaningful relationship. And if that's the ideal you're aiming towards, that's something that you don't want to appear as positive. Now, because there was some positive comments, of course, few, but I guess that's why it's a sad community, because it's very much built on hate.
Hi, a quick question about your integrator reliability scores. I'm of course assuming that all the raters were briefed in the same way.
Yeah.
Were there any discrepancy with regards to the gender of the raters?
Yes, so there was five of us in total, and there was 4 women and 1 man.
And do you know how the differences kind of mapped onto that?
I can probably find that for you, but I can't.
No, just curious, yeah.
Not on the head.
One more question. I think you wanted to have a question.
Yeah, do you think the findings about the incel forum that you've begun to develop are unique to incel forums, or do you think they're generally true for most online forums?
I think that I think that a lot of the misogyny, if we're just looking at misogyny from one sense, I think there's misogyny in what's happening internally, right? So with the individuals who produce that kind of content. I think a lot of this stuff reflects what's already out there. And I think that the reason why this stuff is quite attractive to a lot of young men is because there's a kernel of truth in it, right? So they will quote statistics from Tinder, for example. And if you look at statistics from Tinder, by the way, if you don't know, it's the swipey one, yes, no, it's like you make an immediate judgment on someone, do you want to date someone or not. They would point to a very shallow worldview, right? So I think it reflects what's already out there, but because it's an echo chamber, it exacerbates a little bit more, I think. In terms of whether it's unique to incels, I guess the fatalistic aspect is because other manosphere groups don't share it, but I wouldn't say it's unique to incels, no. And I think that's why, sorry, I'll wrap up soon. In the future, if we carry on with this stuff, I think research like this can really inform policy because it can say, look, you can't just, it's not even about letting these groups kind of exist online, but like, look at these men essentially, they're kind of in a shitty situation, they're kind of in a crappy situation here because they don't have any other positive avenues to turn to, and it's not unique to incels, so I think it's kind of wider problem.